Me parece que ya tenemos con nosotros a Guillaume Rigeade, que es gestor de Carmignac Portfolio Flexible Bond. Guillaume, thank you so much for being in Negocios Televisión. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, buenos días.
The US, Guillaume, is still at crossroads over the debt ceiling, and Janet Yellen is still revealing what will be the consequences of defaults in the United States. How do you think this will end? Do you believe that the Democrats will end up giving in?
That's true that Janet Yellen said that the cross date will be as soon as the 1st of June. So this is something which we discussed now. I think we'll discuss much more in 3 weeks than now. It seems that it could be easy to find some patches in the first for a short period of time, and maybe because we have huge fiscal revenues in June, this problem could be postponed to the end of the summer. But what is important is that we need that everyone is scared to make the politicians to move, and for that we believe that it could be a stress on the market to force the politicians to discuss and to find an agreement. Because as Janet Yellen is stressing, this is a huge problem. What are the economic impacts if there is no agreement? We may have a default of the Treasury, we may have a fiscal adjustment with a strong recessive impact, and we could think that the fiscal adjustment would be as important as 5% of the GDP. We could see a deterioration of the credit rating of the US, but maybe with the most probability, we would see a shutdown of the administration. And if there is no agreement, we may have a rise in volatility on the market, we may have a sell-off on equities, we may have rising yields on the short end of the yield curve, we may have a flight to quality on the long end. All these economic impacts, would trigger the politicians to discuss. And we should first remember that the US debt is one of the most robust assets in the world, especially if we take into account the global role of the US dollar. So even if there is this uncertainty, this is a robust asset. And second, Biden seems to be ready to discuss. First, he was not even open to negotiate. But on last Tuesday, he first met the Republicans. They agreed to meet again tomorrow, and it seems that he is ready to open the door to some negotiations, especially about the COVID funds, which have not been spent for the moment. So maybe the door could be open for negotiations, and we may have, what do we need? We need about 10 Republicans to go through the party. So I think we'll have a stress on the market. We may have some fears, and when everyone is scared, we'll have the politicians moving and discussing, and I think we'll find finally an agreement.
Taking this into account and the inflation numbers in the US, how do you think inflation numbers and what is happening about the debt ceiling will impact on our fixed income portfolios? Is it time to invest in fixed income right now?
Of course, fixed income markets, if we think about rates, government rates, they are reflecting the risk on growth, but also the expectations on inflation. And today we had the PPI, the producer prices in the US. More importantly, yesterday we had the CPI, consumer prices in the US. All these measures are showing that we are in a move for disinflation. Yesterday, the CPI was at 4.9% on a year-on-year basis in April. We should remember that the peak was above 9% last year. So we are in a strong movement of disinflation. And this is not a surprise, because this disinflation is wanted. It's managed by the central banks. This is the objective of the central banks. And then this disinflation is not a surprise, but is reflected into a decline in interest rates. So maybe it could be a good opportunity to invest in fixed income markets if we want to benefit from this disinflation. But to better understand this disinflation, we should monitor the different components within this inflation. And if we look at the different components to better understand the disinflation, we first see that the core goods, cars, we don't have any more supply chain problems for cars, but the prices for used cars in the US has been risen decently in April, plus 1.3%. Maybe it's a catch-up because the figures before were very weak, even negative. So core goods, ex cars, is not so strong. If we look at the services, we have the rents. The rents are still very strong, but we know that it's a lagging measure and it will slow. Medical services are very strong, but we know it's on a macroeconomic basis, it's not very relevant because it's based on data of 2021. So we have also the airlines, it's very volatile. Taking all these components into account, what do we have if we drop all these volatile components? We have wages in services, and it's very strong. We have companies who are still, we still have the pricing power and that's still rising margins. So if we think about the disinflation as a result of slowing rents and core goods, we have services strong, and this is what I translate into sticky inflation. So in terms of investment decisions, I like interest rates, I'm long duration, but I like inflation products. That's why I'm long break-evens, inflation expectations on markets.
Guillaume Rigeade, gestor de Carmignac del portfolio Flexible Bond, thank you so much for being in Negocios Televisión. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.